Intel Security. I've had the opportunity to meet many of you at the IT Summit and really look forward to working with you to further your security practices. I've been working with ITonCommand for quite some time now, specifically with our Next Generation Firewall platform and their managed services offering. Enabled by the partnership of ITonCommand and Intel Security, we look forward to showing you the next evolution in network security. With that said, I'd like to introduce you to John Smith, CEO of ITonCommand, to show you the value of augmented security utilizing the Intel Security Next Generation Firewall. With that said, over to you, John.
Hey, great. Thanks, Patrick. Good morning, everybody. I'm Jonathan Smith, the CEO of ITonCommand. Today, we'll be discussing the Intel Next Generation Firewall and how it can further secure your network. ITonCommand has over 15 years of experience securing organizations and hosting applications. We are an Intel Security MSP and a Microsoft hosting partner and have awards in HIPAA security. And again, thank you for your time this AM. So today, I'm going to do a basic intro, high level, and then hand it over to Marcus, our CTO. The next slide, Marcus. Great. Today we'll be talking about the Intel Next Generation Firewall and ITonCommand Cloud Security offerings. We're going to highlight the security features of the Intel Next Generation Firewall. We will discuss the standard offerings and instant layer 2 wiretap methodology, securing traffic with a shield up approach, and give example situations on some nice portal graphs. So this is a chart of motivations behind attacks and where your company might fall, but really everybody's at risk. Today, executives have security at top of their mind, agenda in every boardroom. I know all of our customers want to talk security, and it's our job to secure their clients. We trust Intel to do this, among other different strategies, but it's a big piece of it at the perimeter. Everyone knows you turn on the TV and you read about companies getting attacked every day. I've got different trade rags, and it's getting worse and worse. The question you got to ask yourself is, can you afford another successful attack? And today I was just reading that 76% of companies have been attacked in some certain way successfully, whether it's through a password attack internally or a bot or malware or an AET. So with that, I'll hand it over to Marcus for a little more technical background, and thanks, guys.
Hi, thanks everybody for your time today. I'm excited to talk to you about the Intel Next Gen Firewall, and this is my selfie. It's a funny slide. It really showed the excitement I had several years ago. We embarked on the Intel partnership where we had gotten the sensors and deployed them in best practices. This really makes my life simpler with security. And, my family thought I was crazy. They didn't want to get a picture. We laugh about it all the time. So this is my selfie. Truly, it's a joy to have this platform, and I'm really excited to show you why. Recently, one of the hacktivism black energy campaigns was found to be targeting enterprise networks, power plants, chemical factories, nonprofits, and the devices that were compromised, remote access terminals, RATs, field devices, mail equipment machines, printers, were sending information out to command and control centers, actually blueprinting our American companies. The further analysis showed that the penetrations had come from this footprinting and then deploying RATs to the inside to export data out of reflection devices. We've heard of Susnex and how that allowed the operators to see the centrifuges running properly. Really, they were in a runaway fashion, and the malware intercepted that communication and and allowed the operators to think everything was running normally. Yeah, this is testimonial at the Congressional Committee, and even Sony with all their expensive software and engineers. I mean, security is complex. So you have the devices. Do you have the knowledge and the manpower to do this? Here's some quotes. In the first one, it talks about advanced evasion techniques. In this generation of malware and attacks, advanced evasions are hard to find, and they are targeted on all networks. These devices that Intel has built allows you to see that, and they have a great market share and portfolio. It's an enormous growing market. The normalization that's done with the Intel devices is built into the chip. So they've patented this to be real time, not near time. It is real time at all layers. We'll talk about that. And other vendors' shortcuts. Certain systems need to be turned off, allowing for speed, if you will. Imagine putting an inline firewall before a robot in a manufacturing facility. That the communication cannot have delay. So these firewalls were designed for that. What is the Intel Next Gen Firewall? Intel acquired StoneSoft. They had been around a long time and developed the core. It's deployed by thousands of customers, the CIA, the NSA, government agencies. It's in military vehicles. It's environmental proof, and we'll get into some of the detail there. They're in the visionary quadrant and have achieved recommended status by NSS Labs testing, Purdue Security Centers. They've reached common criteria, and they support FIPS compliant connections. So you can run all your crypto endpoint, pre-shared or cert-based tunneling systems through this, as well as apply class prioritization in a different way than QoS tagging. We'll talk a little bit about that. In security, there's really a different model that we look at in terms of where you secure your organization. What's happened in the industry is most organizations think there's an air gap between operational technology and informational technology. So if you have specialized protocols or an environment where safety is your top concern, there's temperature, vibration, and these devices, field controllers, PCA valve, analog digital devices, converters, these run your power grids, your electrical systems, or your operating chemical factories. So they have a different system. We call that operational technology. And the air gap between that network and IT technology, typically what we found in over 500 assessments in the several years here, there's a undocumented communication that exists. And so in one case, we looked at the CRM system and the hub and spoke fashion talking to their data center allowed one of the field controller equipment, a green screen, if you will, running a robot, was compromised in this advanced AET attack, and it spread through the undocumented air gap and infected all the locations. The data breach cost each plant a day of outage. It was 20 some hours till the threat was removed. and it was $1 million loss per hour per plant. So what we're talking about in security is deeper than layer 3.5 and above. With your typical enterprise firewall or your high perimeter DMZ firewall, we're talking levels 3.5 and above. When we go below that level, where you look at independently of the protocol, but at the media link layer, we're looking at a different cat altogether. And then at the lowest level, we're talking about our tap. The wiretap and the benefits that it provides with the real-time communication. So the device and the platform is multi-purpose and fits in all the areas of your traditional layer 3 firewall down to a tap. We're using this at all levels in controlling applications and protocols like your traditional firewall. It'll do your low, high perimeter defense zones, IP, UDP, ICMP, your TCP segments. It'll at your network isolation, isolate your BGP, all your link level communication. There's a concern in a lot of networks where IP6 is enabled by default, and what happens is in that security-wise fashion, IP6 hosts are all source-routed hosts, which is different than an IP4 host. So in Windows, it's a single-home stack where IP6 isn't. You can't remove it. You can remove IP4, but 6 is only, you can only disable it. Now, most people leave it unmanaged and, aggressively eager to allow the auto configuration there. Well, recent findings show that this IP4 rules through your traditional firewall actually create an IP6 enabled by default, which is fully open through the IPv4 tunneling. Imagine what Java does with a IP6 peer-to-peer open link communication that's enabled on your machines unknowing by your firewall admin. So the network segmentation allows the protection and isolation of that access control where you may be overlooking something like that. The data link, we talked about that a little. If you're using Ethernet 2, newer technologies, ATM over MO, ATM over Ethernet. If you're trying to look at MO circuits and or down at the lower level token ring and some of the legacy 30-year-old protocols, we understand that coverage is too. If you're running Rockwell, GE, HVAC, we've found has a lot of exposure running and managing your VPLS and isolating that. So how do we look at security at Intel? Well, they have a threat reputation system that manages 22 billion queries a month. It shares them with all their platforms and ecosystems, and then reports that data back into these firewall devices in a real-time fashion. Intel developed a new protocol called the Threat Intelligence Exchange. There's a lot of vendors signing up for that, and it will exchange real-time, not near-time, threat intelligence with this ecosystem. They've already been running for some time. So if you're using the old MX Logic products, that's an Intel reputation activity that populates the system. So if somebody in another part of the world has a malware infection, a virus infection, uses one of their products, SIM, endpoint, the Intel security suite is 70-some products deep, and those report into this GTI network and feed back your firewall and your sensor real-time data in your enterprise. So what happens is when you have an air gap or an investigation, you want to have your security analytics team look at last week's event log and management, or if you want to secure your databases with their Deep Database Defender product, Intel has a platform that is connected. And when you take one of their products, such as our Wiretap Next Gen Firewall, and deploy that, you can grow into their platform so that you can start to make use of streamlined log management and correlation for the analytics that might be helpful. So where did the firewall start? Well, years ago, it was a basic device. It allowed for port forwarding, and it, basically was using a NAT to enhance the limitations of IP4. Around that limitation of the number of devices of IP4 and having the NAT workarounds, we really created, holes, these penetrable holes and open port listeners into our current network. So as we come into the future, we want to connect all these devices to your policy orchestrators, your security management systems, your advanced threat defense, and really bring you in a connected approach. So how do we do that with Intel at ITonCommand? We have a security as a service wiretap, and we put that in your network. It can be done at the internet, in an internal network, or within a hypervisor. It'll run in tap mode and look at all of your trunking and VLANs, and we'll monitor that 24/7 and the threat intelligence ecosystem with Intel. It allows for instantly detecting malicious traffic, and it prevents this automatically before it enters your network or in front of your database or within your VM architectures or your plant equipment. The portal we provide you allows access to manage these devices, to monitor the information. It'll roll up your NetFlow data, your MIB, your alert log data, all into the Intel Security Management Center. So we provide that for you and for your teams. How does this look? It can be provided here in, so it can be provided here as a hypervisor. We can provide it as a cluster high availability solution at your main office, for example, or in wiretap mode as a single appliance that can be in a hardened environment, resistance to vibration, the bottom of the mine shaft. And, this is beyond your traditional firewall that only works in a, the right temperature knock environment. It'll work in the chemical spray room. The log data is sent into our cloud, where the Security Management Center, managed by Intel, and our security teams allow you access, and your security or your security officers access to do their analytics. They provide no conflict of interest and a separation of duties. It eliminates an abuse of trust. Provides you instant up. We'll talk about our shields on method next. And you don't have to send your teams to training. We can help you with that, and you can lean on us to manage your security. So what do? We provision and deploy it with a non-disruptive install. Our expert team will monitor that We'll do the maintenance, warranty. We'll liaise on support with Intel, work on any of the custom settings that you'd need. We'll monitor and back up that console so that you'll have guaranteed access to it. We'll give you the on-demand portal for your reporting, and you can do those by email or scheduled or on demand. And in our enterprise offering, we'll customize. Here's a list of some things. We don't need to go through them all. We'll talk about some of those. What do you get in the console? It is a unified view of security. Here's a view of one of the installations. In the offering, you can see we have third-party devices reporting into here, and those can be your other vendors' security appliances to send in their syslog data, MIB, NetFlow, etc. So it'll be your security event window, and it'll roll up your data from other products in the Intel ecosystem, from the ESM, the ATD product line. We're talking about today the next-gen firewall and the functions of that. And they have an NSP platform that sandboxes and spins up, gives you grades on your environment. The standard offering will review your network and work with you on what you think is running in your environment, talk about where the wiretap will go. We'll install that next-gen firewall and monitor it and profile your traffic. We'll visit with you and show you what really your network's doing and review those findings. We'll then talk about our best practice and our lockdown that we'll perform, and we'll apply that in a 30-day grace fashion. Our rapid response team will maintain continual network integrity. It will provide you the reports, standard email, if you like a preferred schedule or on-demand type of thing. Those things are available. We'll do the upgrades, updates. As Intel releases new features, they have advancements in their GeoIP, and today they released an upgrade set. We'll apply those guidance. Those will be debug tested in advance for your network profile. Our enterprise offering, we can work with you to use bandwidth re-engineering. Intel has a unique way to QoS without QoS tagging in terms of class prioritization and the way they define it. We can show you some examples. It's unique in the way they do that. You can eliminate your MPLS and save by going to internet crypto tunnels with allowing QoS bandwidth engineering without doing the QoS tagging over your tunnels. The custom alert rules can be correlative to look at port knocking events, disable out of countries. We can give you full access to the portal, work with you in training your team. In about a day, a typical firewall admin can get in here, understand their network, see where malware may exist, what machines are communicating with what. It's a very friendly console, the security management center that we provide. We'll assist with the rule hardening or designing a complex, high availability platform. The base 1300 series model, they go up to the 5000. They have the resistant, environmental proof as well. So we'll help you find the right device. So how does this cool wiretap work? Well, it's undetectable. So we instantly turn it on, and it discovers the link topology. It understands 10 gig virtual fabrics in legacy topologies we can talk about if you're in one of those environments, manufacturing facility. It'll detect the malicious and unwanted traffic, and it'll block it. It blocks this bad stuff. It talks to that global threat intelligence network, and at a layer 2 mode, it can see if you're going to YouTube, and it can also see if you're bridge reflecting on a undefined protocol that isn't TCP or UDP. This is not a rip and replace, get rid of your large investment in your current security environment. This is complementary to it. It'll work with your current SIMs and enhance those, but it is the future of managing security in the unified connected security management center. So what does this look like when we start to get a little deeper? After day one, when we put in the wiretap, we immediately see the bad stuff. We know what's in your network. We can see how many attempts that had happened, and this is one day. So in this example, there was, 2,000-3,000 issues that in a typical firewall, for example, the SQL rule, this SQL Server port would have been published through your firewall, and this communication would be allowed in through your firewall and allowed to talk to your SQL Server. Probably a normal port that you might publish, that you might have hardened to only communicate with certain external systems. But in this case, we can zero into the anomaly of it. We can see where it was from, that it was from China. We know the IPs, exactly what it was doing. And then we can zero in furthermore to the traffic examination. And in the traffic examination, we can look at last week, last month. We can define the history. And together you can look at the attacker, where it came from, what the sensor did. It terminated this successfully. It'll explain to you what it is. In this case, it was a vulnerability looking for something that isn't patched properly on your SQL. And down here, you'll actually have a CV index to learn more about it, the Microsoft hotfix to patch your SQL Server. But understandably, the sensor terminated this before it could arrive at your SQL Server. And a traditional firewall allows that through your FTP traffic, your web traffic, your email traffic. All of those things are just normal port forwarding rules to a layer 3 device. This looks at it in layer 2 mode. As an example for bandwidth re-engineering, it was important to one of our telco customers. They wanted to build back for certain protocols, such as video stream protocols, and build back as the new federal regulations provide, the ability to manipulate that and bill per protocol use. You can now discard protocols such as AOL or Google or charge for them. You can provide a class limiter so that your customers independently can pay for exactly what protocols they want. In this case, you can see we worked to discard some of the things they didn't want, and then we allowed these protocols here. It's kind of funny. I was able to call Doug's on with us, and when we had gotten these set up years ago and we're working with it, it was such a fantastic tool. At one of our choke points, an air gap, if you will, I had put in the rule to block pings, and I called Doug and said, Doug, the network's down, the sky's falling, check your pings, check your tools. And of course, I only allowed with the limiter the 1 KB, and so some of the pings got through, but it kind of choked along. Now realize everything else worked perfectly. So he caught on to me, but we we laugh together. So in a typical environment, the ICMP is process switched versus circuit switched, and so on and so forth. That creates a secondary preference for certain traffic. And this is where you have a clear example of the delay. And in other routers, they'll drop the IC in favor of the CPU process. But with the Intel chip design, this is real time, and you can apply your QoS limiters without taking a second preference, even on ICMP. So here is an example of any application you can pick, and I'll talk to you more about the list here. It will then send you alert via SMTP or text, and these alert rules are important because you might want to target something in your environment and then have an awareness instantly when it's happening. You can always, with the logging, go back and look at it, but there's nothing like being notified instantly when you have a team that's available to handle it. So here's an example what we found after a day one shields up. We're instantly able to look at the malware sites and catalogs such as data loss, legal liabilities, spam and botnet sources. And what do we find? In here, there was a high degree of traffic that was going from certain addresses here. We advised the customer. In this case, we had seen a mail system. It was in printer systems unknowingly that were sending traffic to these sites. They were actual HTTP requests. And so when we identified these with the client, in some cases they had found additional malware down here, severe malware. They were prodded to use other tools than their current antivirus platform. So from your printers to the other field devices in your network, what are they talking to, and what does your current firewall tell you about this? This shows you at an instant. Here's an example report. We'll go into some of these in a little bit more detail, but this is a standard anomaly report showing you what the firewall did to target the attack in terms of terminating the action, discarding it without the remote host knowing, and cataloging all of the environmental conditions that you should be aware of and its response to those. Who's heard of shadow server? So what can you do with access control lists here? It's extremely powerful. In this case, it's just searching for Google out of 1,500 elements comes up with a list of 40 here. Has anybody heard of Google AdMeld? Well, you can control that per user, per IP, per network, per VLAN, at a layer 2 mode. Over here, this is a torrent search, and there's 24 torrent elements. We've all heard of maybe Demonoid, some of these other ones maybe. But the good news is, with these devices, Intel's threat intelligence updates these in real time. So when a new torrent comes on the list, a new protocol, they know about it. It's instantly downloaded into your sensor and comes in a catalog fashion so that the next torrent's locked instantly. Here's a great live view of your traffic. In this case, we could have filtered on anything, meetup.com. Have you heard of mgoon? In any case, remote desktop, a lot of people use that. Who's your network talking to? It'll give you a real-time GeoIP located IP address at a physical level. So you can disable out-of-sensor communication to different countries. There's a correlation event you can block after they've attempted several times, after a threshold of a minute, 100 times, and you can do it for any protocol, FTP, SSH, HTTP, remote desktop. It's a throttling mechanism for any of these filters. Here's a great report showing you traffic by interface. You can do this by protocol. The graph here on the left shows the ramp up of connections in a morning interval. It shows you the real connections in transit, so you can zero into real-time action. Boy, this is great. When you can get a chart per megabit of who's using Apple or shopping, realize you can block this. So our layer 2 tap shows you what's going on. We can always go adjust what it's allowing. And these aren't malicious, obviously. So we'll talk more about the attackers in this report. You can see they're coming from all over the planet. And you can zero into these charts and look right at the traffic, down to the URL path, who did it, when they did it, what the string was. When it blocks something, you can actually go in and see the payload that it was trying to pull through the internet and the URL string that was malicious. It's phenomenally powerful. These are examples of things the sensor blocks that unknowingly your firewall probably allows. If you're running a DNS server and publishing DNS, it's probably not aware of misformed DNS queries that can compromise your network. This is a graph of services running through your network and senders peer communication, which is important when you know there's a consistent communication going on to China. Maybe you don't do business in there, and why is it a persistent connection? So when we look at peers, it's a little different than port knocking. This is bad stuff. We can fix this for you. So, John, did you want to take it from here?
Yeah, sure, Chris. Thanks a lot for the deep technical information there. Hopefully everyone can follow it. Yeah, I just wanted to touch on and reiterate a few key points from a higher level. That unlike normal models out there that are always in layer 3, we're additive security. So we can go on the perimeter or inside and on the wiretap mode, and so it's not rip and replace. You keep your team that you like, you keep that security in place, and then you have dual vendor scanning, and that's starting to become a strong recommendation by security experts out there, is having multiple vendors to catch everything, right? Because people have different strengths. And the way we deploy this all is a OpEx model as a service. So we run it for you, like Marcus said on that one slide, and we take care of it for you, and you call us when you have a problem. And that's good news for your staff, because you don't have to go fly out somewhere and train, hire a new guy. So it's a headcount discussion, like any service is. So those are a few things, and I'd also like to say that before we hand it over for Q&A here, and anybody's on the webinar today, we're going to extend you a special offering. So we'd like to contact you, and if you're one of the people that didn't possibly put their names in fully, we hope you contact us. And we've also recorded that if you want to review it with someone else in your organization, we can be happy to pass that along, and we'll get that to you as soon as you want. So, with all that, I'd like to hand it over to the technical team. Anybody on the line that's got a question for them about how the model's deployed and security.
Yeah, Doug, there's a few questions. Did you want to take those?
Yeah. Thanks, Marcus. Hi, everybody. So let's see. Got a good question here. It says, what is the difference between layer 3 mode and layer 2 mode? So in short, layer 3 mode is typically going to be your head-end device. For example, it will process all your NAT and port forwarding rules, perhaps even maybe your VPNs. Your layer 3 devices generally designed to lock down inbound traffic or lock your inbound traffic out, except what you have really decided to allow through. However, they're typically designed to let all outbound traffic pass through and then allow the return traffic back in. As well, as you probably know, every open port to your firewall or on your firewall is a potential open window to your network. As well, your head-end NAT device, or I should say your head-end NAT device, a layer 3 device, will be visible to attackers, and should it go offline, your rules will cease to process, and of course you'll experience a network outage. In contrast, in layer 2 mode, the next gen allows all traffic through. However, when a security policy is applied, it will immediately begin to terminate traffic known to be malicious that matches the policy. You can also apply custom rule sets to allow or deny specific communication. As Marcus had shown you, you could, for example, deny Netflix, or perhaps you just want to limit the amount of bandwidth available for streaming. In addition, in layer 2 mode, the NGF is transparent to your network. In other words, it does not route any traffic. It inspects the traffic as it passes through the interface in real time, and since it is in an inline tap mode, it is not visible to attackers, which is obviously very key. As well, since it does no routing or port forwarding, with the addition of the bypass card, should the device go offline, and the bypass card will prevent the loss of network continuity, and therefore there will be no network outage. So that answers that question, I think. And as a nice segue, actually, the next question asked, what is the bypass card, and how does it work? Do I need a bypass card when I purchase the Intel? So basically, the bypass card is an additional card that can be purchased with the firewall. There's an available slot back in the back of the NGF where the bypass card can be added. When using the card, you will actually use the ports included with the card rather than the ports built directly into the NGF. The reason being is the card has a magnetic trip, so to speak. And should the power fail, the magnet will disengage and the ports will then act strictly as a pass-through ports in order to maintain your network continuity. At most you might see that you lose one ping. To answer the other question, I'd say we always recommend the bypass card just for that reason. The only time you might find that you don't want or we don't want to include the card is if you have multiple units in a high availability failover cluster. Or perhaps, lastly, in a VM, you can't add a bypass card, only in the physical device. Let's see, I got one more question here. Let's see, what does it say? Can I delay upgrading my existing firewall if I add the NGF to my existing infrastructure, or could I replace my existing firewall with the Intel? So, of course, you can certainly replace your existing firewall with Intel Next Generation Firewall. However, our solution for the Intel NGF is to complement your existing security infrastructure, allowing you to leverage your existing investment for a longer period of time. It's also good to remember that the next gen can also manage and aggregate the data from all your other compliant devices in a single management console. This would include SNMP devices, anything that can talk on the data exchange, can collect log info from your web server logs, as well as your syslog servers. It can also collect info from NetFlow data, as well as mid monitors and so on. Lastly, I'd say it can also integrate with your current SIM as well. So I think that pretty much answers the questions I had. I'll hand it over to Don to see. I think he had some more questions he would like to respond to.
Yes, I had a couple of questions asked of me. One of them was related to MPLS, and the question, actually I've had a couple, so I've tried to join those questions into one. Can using Intel taps on both ends of an IPsec VPN tunnel allow me to eliminate MPLS costs from my budget? Now, that's a pretty significant question. And with the capabilities of the Intel Next Generation Firewall, when run in tap mode, you can create IPsec tunnels that also utilize the functions of QoS tagging so that you can prioritize your traffic just like you were going through an MPLS provider. And this would give you the ability to have VPN tunnels over the internet with most of the advantages of MPLS, in that you could queue the traffic the way you want to. Okay. And there was one additional question that someone asked, and that was related to the non-TCP/IP protocols and how the Intel firewall can protect in those situations of either DCS or SCADA traffic or other embedded system type of traffic. The Intel firewall is able to work with Siemens protocols, Rockwell protocols, the Internet of Things, and also microcontrollers, including things like NetDino and Arduino. So the Intel firewall is capable of handling those things today. Those were the questions I had. Patrick, I'm going to turn this over to you if you want to take it from here.
Sure. Well, if there's no more questions, I want to thank everyone for their time joining us. As John mentioned earlier in the call, this has been recorded. If you'd like to pass it along to anyone else within your organization to take a look at, the information to contact ITonCommand is on the screen. If anyone has any questions specifically about Intel security or McAfee, feel free to reach out to ITonCommand as well, and they can get you in touch with me to discuss anything security related that was not part of the ITonCommand offerings. And with that said, once again, want to appreciate everyone for your time, and ITonCommand will be following up with everyone soon. Thanks, guys.
Thanks, Patrick.
Thanks for joining, everybody.